I tell clients and people, anybody really, I can get, I can get their ear. I often use the term identity precedes destiny, meaning if you can never mentally embody, emotionally embody that future version of you with the income and the homes or the nonprofit or the foundation or the children or the in bank account, whatever that looks like to you, if you can't really live who that person is before the money hits the account, when the money hits the account, you got to think of you as a thermostat.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You're here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction, your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Joya, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Welcome to the Faith Over Addiction podcast. I'm Tanya Joya, and I have Matt here with me today. He is going to help us change our relationship with money, which is going to change our life. Now, he has a brand new baby on the way, but that makes number 8. So a lot of folks to feed, to shoe, to take care of. He's a licensed financial advisor and the founder of a wealth management firm, and very passionate about how we serve our God with money. So Matt, I'm going to let you take it away. We were just talking about soon you're going to have a house full of teenagers. That gets expensive. So what can you share with us about setting up a good financial foundation?
Thank you so much for having me on, Tanya. That's such an honor. And I know a lot of the people that come on your show, a lot of the audience is women, so hopefully it's okay that you let a guy in here to have a conversation.
We
But
love hearing how your brain works because sometimes we're like, wow, I wouldn't have thought that.
yeah, you just could just ask my wife and say, maybe you could edit that and say, why did you think that? That's probably the better question. My wife asks me a lot. Um, but yes, I'll be married. This will be 16 years at the end of this year. And if you do the math, we basically got married and 6 months later got pregnant. We've been having babies since we've been married. I joke with her, but it's actually not a joke. I feel like I got married, and I've been married to a pregnant or a nursing woman my entire life. I don't know what it's like to be married to someone who isn't that. But we'll find out soon enough. We'll
Yeah.
find out. But yes, baby number 8, that'll even it out, 4 boys, and this one's a girl, so four that'll make 4 girls. So it's super cool. Thanks God for a perfect split. I mean, it's feel like such a
Wow.
blessing.
Wow.
Maybe he
Wow.
had a little mercy on us. He's like, if you're gonna have 8, at least we'll split it up for you, 50-50.
Now,
Um,
how did you get into the financial business? Because that wasn't the big dream was to play professional baseball.
yeah, you got it. That was my 5-year-old boy dream all the way till I was 26. I wrote that dream in my "What do you want to be when you grow up" section of my nursery school graduation book, which we had one of. And I just held on to that for literally 20 plus years. And I chased it. I got all the way to the Royals. I played with the Royals and their Kansas City Royals and their farm system in the minor leagues for five seasons until eventually, which is what I said, I'll play until they take the uniform off me. And they did. And that was how I ended my career. But it was an amazing experience. And I will say that those 5 seasons in particular really shaped me into the man I am today. I
Mm,
really grew into my faith in that season. I learned a lot about who I was when I didn't have a backstop, because
mhm,
you're put in the middle of the country. Oftentimes, minor league teams are in podunk towns where there's no real big city around it for
mhm,
fan to be able to attract the fan base because the big
mhm.
league club will attract the majority of fans. But if you're living in Burlington, Iowa, there's not really a big league stadium around you. So
Oh
now
my
you go
God.
to see the Burlington Bees play. Or if you're in Idaho Falls, Idaho, you don't really have a big league team that you latch onto. So you latch onto the Idaho Falls Chuckers. So you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, America, with a bunch of guys you don't know, you just met hours ago, and you have to figure out like where do you live, who are you going to live with, how do you feed yourself, all the basic necessities, but in the middle of nowhere with nobody to call to say, hey, I need some help. So it's been
Mm,
cool. I mean, in hindsight, unfortunately, a lot of my understanding and learning was in a rear view. It's a rear view context. I
mhm.
wish I had the wherewithal or the foresight to say, hey, man, this is a really cool experience. But all that to say, I became a lot of who I am and the man I am today as a result of baseball. So I'm forever grateful for it, even though theoretically I failed to reach the ultimate goal. I never made the big leagues. But I eventually, through a few twists and turns, got into the wealth management space. I got into, well, you heard my story. I basically started having babies. We got pregnant after that getting
Mm.
released season. So getting fired is what the baseball term, while we were trying to find a place to live. So we were actually living on like parents' spare
Oh,
bedrooms, couches, that kind of stuff, trying to find an apartment because we weren't planning to be in Massachusetts, which is where we were at first. We live in South Carolina now, but we were going home to Massachusetts and had no home. And then we get pregnant with no home. And that's the start of my like professional life where I was like, had to wear my big
woohoo.
boy pants and afford a family and all the things. In the minor leagues, I made sub 5 figures. So for anybody counting, that's less than $10,000 a year. So I made
Hmm.
about $6,000 a year as a minor leaguer, and then supplemented with a few more grand as a snow plower, Cutco knife salesman, you name it. I had any off-season job, I had it. Um, but I really learned how to squeeze a quarter out of a nickel, and I took a lot of pride in that my entire life, and that has served me. Um, but eventually, through a couple different turns, I got into wealth management, money management, and that's really a turning point for me in terms of how I related to money. I used to be so proud to be able to squeeze a quarter out of a nickel. I grew up in this kind of scarcity mentality where it's like turn the lights off, turn the heat down. You get screamed at, and if you don't keep the house down temperature wise because the oil's expensive. That's the environment I grew up in. I just thought that was normal. And then I got kind of thrust into this wealth management space where some people have a couple commas in their bank account and their income is not 4 figures, it's 7 figures, 8 figure incomes. And it's a whole new world because they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like me. But I got to learn how they think about money and how they view work and how they don't trade time for dollars. They trade value for dollars, and that's a very different mindset. And I really shattered a lot of old beliefs and limiting beliefs around money mindset and how I relate to money. And I learned, gosh, a lot of how I think and relate and use money is actually stopping me from growing into who God made me to be. So I know I
Mm.
said a lot right there. We can go whatever direction you want, but I'm
Let's
really
back up. I'm
passionate about
glad
changing
that you
relationships
talked
with money
about
for
the
that reason.
scarcity mindset. I'm glad that you talked about that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make an assumption, that the big dream was I hit the Royals, I get paid the big salary, then I will worry about investing, retirement, and all those types of things. Until then, you were scrappy.
You got it.
Now, dive deep into you talked a little bit about it, but dive deep into what we do and what we're proud of, turning the nickel into the quarter and how that stops us with the scarcity mindset.
I will tell you, you just can't, first off, you can't save your way to becoming a millionaire. And we use that term millionaire just to represent somebody with a lot of money. Whether
Hmm.
$1 million is a lot to you or not is all subjective. Interestingly, I've had people talking about the psyche around money. I've had people come to me with literal million plus dollars that say, I know I'm just a small account with $1 million. I understand that. And I've also had people come to me with that same emotional mindset around me, but say, I know I only have $10,000. And it's all relative and it's all perspective on what you think you should, quote unquote, should have at whatever life stage you're at, which is kind of a big crock if you ask me. But I tell clients and people, anybody really I can get I can get their ear. I often use the term identity precedes destiny, meaning if you can never mentally embody, emotionally embody that future version of you with the income and the homes or the nonprofit or the foundation or the children or the in bank account, whatever that looks like to you, if you can't really live who that person is before the money hits the account, when the money hits the account, you got to think of you as a thermostat and you're setting the temperature of your internal state. And if it isn't regulated to that person who earns seven figures, has a big bank account, well then your thermostat, what does a thermostat do? If the room is set to hot and the cold air comes in, the heat kicks on. And the opposite's true too. If the room is set to hot and excuse me, the room is set to cold and warm air comes in, it cools the room back down, right? That's what a thermostat will do. You are the thermostat of your life. If you aren't ready to receive that level of income, that wealth, you aren't ready to manage it, steward it well, then what happens is it flows into your bank account and it finds its way out too. And it finds
Mm.
its way out in weird ways. Somebody gets sick, somebody needed some money that you didn't know that came out of the woodwork, you overspent on this. Like there's a lot of different things that happen, but what ends up happening is your bank account retreats to somewhere that's comfortable for you, that you know you can manage. And that's my belief, my personal belief. That's the reason you hear statistics like 80% of lottery winners lose the majority of their winnings in 5 years because
Mm.
no lottery winner does the hard work of emotionally and mentally preparing what it's going to be like one day when they have that level of wealth. Instead, what happens is they watch the news one night and they realize they've got the golden ticket and they go from no money, paycheck to paycheck or less, to million or billionaire overnight, yet they don't know what it's like to be embody that millionaire or billionaire mindset and how to use that money effectively, how to steward that level of wealth well, and they eventually just lose it because
Mm.
they didn't occupy the identity before their destiny hits them.
That is absolutely fascinating.
Hmm.
So, if I'm set to a temperature of 75 and I like 75, but
Yeah.
suddenly I get the money opportunity to be at temperature 95, then I don't know what to do. Then I panic. Then through whatever reason I let that slip through and go back to where I feel comfortable. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it's going to happen subconsciously. You're not going to consciously say, "Oof, I better not use this. I better spend this money, or I better go and get rid of this bank account because I don't feel comfortable with it. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a subconscious thing that kind of happens.
How did you how did you apply your faith to making that shift? Because we're told to be good stewards, and there's the parable of the talents,
Hmm.
and it's the person who buries the talent, who stays at the 75 degrees, who has not fulfilled his promise. How did you make that shift?
I got the chills thinking of that because I use that parable so often in conversation. Because in my world, meaning like in the financial advising, wealth management world, the common textbook typical advice is, especially once you have a certain level of income or wealth, you're supposed to diversify and spread it and be conservative and protect it so that it doesn't run out and future generations can live off of it and all the
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
But really what that is it's a preaching of scarcity and a worry and fear. But God doesn't teach us to bury the money once we get the money. That parable
Mm.
of talents is exactly what, and it's not just money, it's giftedness. It's what God has entrusted you with. If you can go and multiply what He's entrusted you with, time, gifts, money, if you can go and use that well, steward that well, then you get more. As the parable of the talents ends, the person who buried it, that servant loses everything and it's given to the other. So,
Yes.
like if you don't use your giftedness, so how did I learn that? Well, I leaned on that talent a lot. Like nothing I teach is against what I've learned Jesus taught and God taught in the Bible because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like those are the most rooted, most sound life principles. So why not use them in every area of my life, including money? So I lean on the Bible and like in First Timothy where it says the love of money is the root of all evil. So misquoted, and I grew up thinking money's bad. People with money are bad. They must have lied, cheated, or stole their way to it, or they got it handed to them on a silver spoon. Either way, that's not who I am, and I can never be that person. So I look at that as like, well, if the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, then I've got to check my relationship with money. I don't have to worry about the money itself. And if I
Mm-hmm.
can, and if I really want to become, to answer your question in a long-winded way, how did I kind of get to here? I probably 7 or 8 years ago really went on this deep personal development journey, deep dive. And it wasn't just the Tony Robbins and the Jim Rohns and the Ed Milet's and all the modern day influencers of personal development. It wasn't that. It was also biblically like, who am I created to be? Because I did have an identity crisis as a baseball player decades ago at this point,
Sure.
and I'm
Mm-hmm.
still growing into who God made me to be. But I made a commitment from baseball to now. I said, baseball was really my dream. It wasn't your dream for me, God, even though I tried to use it as your dream, like your calling for me, really it wasn't. It was my dream that I was going to try to use you. I was going to fold you in once I made the big leagues to use that platform to glorify you. But it
Yes.
really wasn't your plan for me ever. So I made a commitment to say, like, whatever your version of, like, whatever your plan is for me, I will obediently follow. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
still trying to figure that out. But I've learned that I I have this fear of dying one day and not living into the fullest version of his creation because I think it's a
Mm.
disservice to who he is.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to use the image of God holding a mirror, this is not biblical, by the way. This is just image, like to help me understand. If
Yeah.
he were to hold a mirror to my face when I died, and then the reflection of the mirror was who he created me to be, but I look into that mirror and I don't recognize the person. I think that's the biggest disservice to his creation. If I'm created in his image, I better live into who he created me to be. And that means stretching and expanding what I'm capable of in all areas, physically, emotionally, as a family. Like, okay, God, if you need me to have 8 kids, then I'm sure you got whatever you put inside me is capable to handle that. And I looked at it financially too. I said, all right, well, if you're telling me to use and multiply what you've given me, that must include money. Therefore, if I can't just bury the wealth you've provided, nor can
Mm-hmm.
clients bury the wealth that they've been given, they need to steward it well. And part of stewarding that well is the parable of the talents, is learning to multiply it in an effective and healthy way. And
Mm-hmm.
it and that means following what his plan is much more than it is doing what emotionally pacifies you and helps you sleep at night necessarily.
There's a couple things I want to unpack in there. I've recently come across the statement of I'm laying down my dreams for your glory.
Mm,
That feels in a way really heavy, but it also feels like a lot of freedom of I don't have to keep striving or doing that. And that's what I hear you saying.
yeah.
If you were talking to a woman who is in a difficult marriage, she's working, there is income, food on the table, those types of things, but she feels like the widow who put her last two pennies in. That's
Mm.
the best she can do right now. How would you begin to talk with her? Because I love it that you brought out that we have other, we have time, we have hospitality, we have other gifts that multiply us as well. But she is looking down the road and going, I really need to be able to support myself, or I really need to fund this college for my kiddo. I know that's where this guy is destined to go, or this gal is destined to go, but maybe there's $10, maybe there's $100 a month in spare. What would you begin to say to her?
Well, I would first um, tell her I feel for her and I understand what it feels like to feel like you don't have two pennies to rub together. And I say that not like pie in the sky, like, oh, I feel for you. I actually, when I got into this job 8, 9, 10 years ago, how long at this point, it was probably, let's see, it was 2018 into 2019 was really the valley of the valleys, but really still had to climb out of it. I got to a place financially, excuse me, financially where I had 5 children at the time and I did not have enough money to buy groceries for them. I had to borrow my mother's credit card because I prayerfully stepped into this world as a financial advisor. I didn't want to go into it. I actually had met some financial advisors as an athlete, and I was very unimpressed by them. They all sounded like they did the same thing. I didn't want to be that as a career, just like a Me Too guy, like everybody does everything the same. So I actually reluctantly said yes. I tried to say no, and after praying a lot and trying to sort of check God on his plan for me, he kind of blew the window wide open to prove to me why I was supposed to step into it. So I reluctantly stepped into this role, but I knew because did it prayerfully that it was his plan for me, and I was not like I did in my previous life. I was not driving this bus.
Mm-hmm.
But then that took me down this journey of quite literally not having enough money to feed my own family. And I'm into my 30s. I have a house. I have 2 kids. I'm the sole provider. We have no other income. And
Mm.
I'm failing my wife. I'm failing my children. So to that woman who's saying, I don't feel like I have enough for what looks like coming down the road, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
My first question to her would be that challenging question of, are you walking God's plan for you, or are you trying to drive the bus?
Mm-hmm.
Because in that season, that valley season, the only reason I don't even want to say the guts, the only reason I had the mind to continue is because I knew this was God's plan for me. And I had to see it through until He changed direction. And there was no part of me in my morning prayer, which every prayer in the morning is like, what do you want? What is my next step? There was no part that said, it's time to leave. It's time to go get a new job. So I knew I was still called to run this race well. So I kept running. And that's what got me through and carried me through. And now you look at my life in hindsight, and I'm like, more children. I live in Charleston, South Carolina now, so I moved. I have some incredibly godly men in my life. There are opportunities that are presenting themselves that never would have existed had I gotten off that train back in that valley season. So my first question to that woman is, are you walking God's plan? And if not, then I wouldn't worry about the money as much. I would actually worry more about what is he calling you to do and go do that
Mm-hmm.
because his if you're walking his plan for you, his plan is not to have you fall on your face and struggle your entire life only to just barely make it and finally you meet him and he said, "Hey, Well done, my good and faithful servant. You just barely scraped by your whole life. That's exactly my life plan for you. I think we are all uniquely gifted and called in some way to make an impact in our worlds and really make an impact for his kingdom in our own gifted way. And it's hard for me to imagine that he created you in his image to call people to him, and to do that you need to struggle and barely make it your entire life and worry and fear the whole time. There are those seasons. Jesus modeled that. Like, he hung on a cross at the end of
Mm.
his life isn't rainbows and butterflies, but he also the whole his public ministry is not all about struggling and worrying and fear and just making it by, you know?
No, not at all. He feeds the 5,000. Suddenly things just happen, right?
Yeah.
So walk us deeper into getting up and being sure that this is what you were called to do.
Sure. That happens for me, and I'm not, this is how God talks to me. It's not an audible booming voice, although that would be kind of wild. I'd probably be scared like his apostles were, though, like his disciples. I'd probably fall and be nervous if I heard that. For me, it's a unwavering conviction on my heart that I know that I'm supposed to do something. And it happens for me in morning prayer. Uh, like I said, my old life, I was really trying to drive the bus, even though I said the words, God, you take over, you take control. I really was like the worst backseat driver ever. Like I was telling him every single turn to take, even though he was driving, technically, he wasn't. I was not full surrender. But today I am. And if you look in the Psalms, I think it's 119, but don't quote me on that. There's a passage that says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light on our path.
Mm-hmm.
And historically, culturally, at the time, those lamps that they're talking about are the equivalent of about 5 candles worth of light. So if you think of walking in the dark with a lamp, because that's why you would use the lamp, you wouldn't do it during the daytime. You're on that path with the lamp that you can see 5 candles worth of light ahead of you, 10 candles, whatever it is. That's maybe 5 feet, 10 feet. So I realize that if I'm in his word and I'm walking his plan, I am only allowed to know my next step, maybe step and a half or two. I don't know any steps beyond that until I willingly and obediently take that next step. So
Mm.
I'm very mindful today. I wasn't for 20 plus years. I had one laser focus, and everything I did was working toward that goal. Today, though, I'll throw a 5 year and a 10 year plan out the window because I'm like, whatever God has for me is where I'm going to be. But I will tell you what I'm supposed to do next. And I will pray that prayer every morning. And when I was going to take this job, I was praying that prayer. When I was when I was thinking about marrying my wife, interestingly, I was praying that prayer. And here's where God really speaks to me and where I know it's him. So to answer your question, how do I know it's from him and not my own selfish ambition?
Mm-hmm.
In in big moments, I have this extreme fear up in my head about taking that step and doing that thing that I feel like is on my heart. That I hear him in prayer, I hear him in the morning, and in my head I have all the reasons why that is not the right thing. In my heart, I have an uncanny peace and conviction knowing it is the thing I need to do. So my head and
Woo.
my heart are in serious battle and turmoil. It happened
And
when I was marrying my wife. I was living in Southern California with a teammate of mine for an off season of baseball because December in Newport Beach, California is a whole lot nicer than December in Boston, Massachusetts to throw a baseball
yes.
outside. So I was living there. Imagine, early 20s, mid 20s, single, pro athlete. I have no interest in meeting a girl from Massachusetts, the other corner of the country, quite literally, meeting her and settling down there because I'm going from California to Arizona to wherever my season goes. Like, I'm not going to be back in New England ever, or at least for the next foreseeable future.
Ever. Let's go with ever.
Yeah, serious. I'm not there now, so I moved. But I met her and was like, oh gosh, this might be different because I met her when I was back for Christmas, just for a Christmas break. I was coming home to visit family for Christmas. I was going back to Newport Beach. Life was good. She met me, I met her. And we, turns out, both prayed the same prayers after we left, like just after Christmas. I flew back to California. She's in Massachusetts. We are both praying, God, please don't let this work. Please don't let this be the one. When we both knew in our hearts this is the one and this is where we're supposed to go, we were both praying, please don't let this be the one. And I will tell you the same thing happened when I was going to step into this role in financial advising. I was like, God, please. I was praying for a new career because my wife had hit me right between the eyes with a statement. A couple years before, a year and a half prior, she said, I was working a lot, providing, but working too many hours. And we had a lot of children at the time. And she said, I didn't sign up to be a single mom, so you better figure this out. And it
Woo.
floored me because I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do as the husband, as the provider, as the man, but I was not present in the home. When I was home, I was present. I just wasn't home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was working for the family, not doing the wrong thing, but doing it on the wrong. I was on the wrong bus. Like I had to get off my
Mm-hmm.
bus and find a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So I was praying for that. And then this opportunity shows up, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be that Me Too at financial advice. I don't want to be like everybody else. I
Mm-hmm.
want to uniquely serve people. This sounds like a boring industry. And in my heart, I knew I was supposed to do it. But in my head, I tried all the ways I could to not do this until finally I had no option. I remember having a convo with my wife saying, I've tried every way I could in prayer and in life to figure out the reason no for this career opportunity. And I'm out of no's. I have no other reason I could say no. I have to take this job, this career. So it's that. It's when I know that in my heart I have a peace, in my head I have all the reasons not to. Same thing happened when I went to launch this. So I was a financial advisor for another firm for about 7, 8 years. And
Mm-hmm.
then I launched my own thing. I launched my own thing at 40 years old, just had my seventh child. I'm still the sole provider. Our life is more expensive than ever. I'm going to start into entrepreneurship now. Like that didn't feel safe, didn't make any sense in here in my head, but then in my heart, I knew that calling was undeniable. And
Ugh.
to the point where I'm like, if I don't follow this, this is now disobedience to the Lord. So I'm now stuck between these terrible places where it's like, I'm either going to choose to be disobedient to the Lord or I'm going to choose to continue this. I mean, I'm in a bad spot, like, or I'm going to choose
Yes.
this,
Yes.
his path for me, but that feels scary as anything. And I don't want to do that either. So like, am I going to be disobedient and stay where I am, or am I going to be scared to death and take the step? Neither feel very comfortable for me.
No, I love this play out that this the conversation, the ego conversation is we can't do this. This is not right. This is not going in the right place. But the peace is down here in the heart.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my biggest fear is being disobedient. I'm like,
Yeah.
please just don't let me be disobedient.
Right.
Whatever you need me to do, please don't let me be disobedient.
Right.
But the conversation in the head is, this doesn't make any sense. But God math often doesn't make sense. So tell us, you started your own firm.
Yeah.
What exactly, for those who are not as up on this as we could be, what exactly do you do?
Yes, I help people align their morals, values, callings, convictions to the actual dollars and cents of their life so that those dollars can be the engine for their life's purpose. Really, that's what it boils down to. How do I do that? I do that in form of like helping them come up with financial plans. I help them invest in a way that they really understand and can rally behind and feel good about. But it's investing, it's financial planning, it's getting control of your money so that you're in control of it. It's not in control of you, and then aligning that to really who you feel like God made you to be. So like any church needs funding. Like
Mm,
churches need dollars. Dollars are not the bad thing. Mother Teresa flew on private jets sometimes to go to save and rescue homeless people. Like
mm-hmm.
that cost a lot of money to get her to places and to travel around and to do what she was doing. She didn't need the money herself. She used it. She was a river, really not a reservoir with her money. But that's a lot of things what I teach. Money's not the bad thing. More money in the hands of good people can do more good. So that's what
Mm,
I do with people. And I named the firm Reconstructing Wealth because after thousands of one-on-one conversations with people, I've learned we all have jacked up relationships with our money. And we all
mm,
need to
mhm.
reconstruct our relationship with money. And when we can do that, we can change the world, or at least we can change our own generations. And if you think about how we inherit our mindsets and our habits around money,
Right.
it's probably not taught around the dinner table in my experience. In my
Mm-hmm.
experience, it's more caught from what our parents modeled because
Mm-hmm.
society tells you not to talk about money, so most people don't. So instead,
Mm-hmm.
we just catch. I have a lot of children. I learn more is caught than taught with them. So we really catch whatever our parents' mindsets are around money. And if I'm using myself as an example, my mother's parents are products of the Great Depression era. So
Yes.
that's really the habits and mindsets around money that have been passed to me until I become the generational chain breaker and decide like my kids and future kids will not see money the same way. And if you can do that, I can't quantify that ripple effect. So that's really what I'm after. But most people first come to me not to say I want to change my relationship with money, at least not yet. Our branding's not good enough yet. But in the same way, they don't go to Jenny Craig to say, I want to learn how to not emotionally eat. They say, like,
Right. Right.
I got a
Which is the
wedding
real
in three
issue.
months. I got to lose 20 pounds and a few inches off my
Yeah.
waistline. People say to me,
So
like, I've got money. I don't have no idea how to invest it, how to use it. Like, I need some help. And in that help comes the transformation.
we've swung back around to identity. Break it down into something simple, something that you would talk to your 8-year old, your 9-year old about. How are you helping them shift their identity so they didn't grow up with the squeeze a quarter out of a nickel identity?
Sure. So I look at your relationship with money. There's really two ways to change it effectively. You get educated on it, and I won't go down that path necessarily because there's so much out there. You could ask ChatGPT or AI, any AI, hey, I don't know anything about money, and I want to start learning. Where do I start? That's a great starting point. The second one is learning to release control of the money. Money has its control on you. So to release control, the easiest way to do that is to start giving in a disciplined way. You start
Mm-hmm.
to give money, your subconscious rewires to say, we don't have to fear this thing anymore. We now actually are okay giving it away. So we don't actually have to subconsciously be fearful of it. And that starts to change your psyche around it. But I will tell you what I teach my kids around money because they're young and that stuff seeps in. I teach them around money because I want them to get educated early, stuff that I learned today that I wished I learned at 8, 10, 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I model generosity with them. They know we have what's called a blessing account. So they're catching that. I'm teaching that. The biggest mindset shift I think I can provide for them today, because they can do this immediately and they do it in the form of lemonade stands and hot chocolate stands and lawn mowing, is
Sure.
that, guys, I don't want you to worry about chasing money. Stop worrying about earning dollars. The dollars will come. What I want you to think about is what problems do people have and what value can you provide to solve their problem? And if you
Mm.
can solve their problem, you'll get paid
Mm-hmm.
because somebody who's making $200,000 a year, I'm making a big number. They're making about a hundred and low hundreds dollars per hour. That's like how the math works out. So if they're making, let's say, $100 an hour, and they're going to take an hour to mow their lawn, their mind might say, "Hey, that's about $100 worth of work." Where you can ring the doorbell and say, "I will mow your lawn for $20." And
Mm-hmm.
they look at that value exchange to say, "Dang, I get $80 back. Hell, absolutely, you can mow my lawn. That's great." And in their mind, they're like, "I'm helping this young kid earn some money." Great. But that's how value has been exchanged since the dawn of time. It just used to be
Yes.
spices and animals, but it was like, hey, on my end, that's a good deal. On your end, that's a good deal. Let's do the deal. Take the cattle, take the spices, take the gold, take the dollar bills. Just happen to be today what they do. So I tell them, solve problems and chase that value you can provide for people, and you will never be without money.
Mm.
And the
So
bigger the
back
problem you solve, the more money you make.
so
If
back to
you're a
my scenario.
neurosurgeon with a very unique skill and the consequence of the problem is life or death, it's a very big problem,
Yes.
and you solve that problem, you get paid. If you have a smaller problem, like a lawn mowing business, that's not a big problem. You can't charge $100,000 to mow their lawn. They'll never do it. It's not a good value exchange. Just know that it's still a problem you're solving. You just have to solve a lot more of those problems, and you can still earn a lot of money. you just have to think about what direction, what's God calling you to do? How are you uniquely gifted?
So back to my scenario, the woman who's in the hard marriage who is earning, and first thing, what is God asking of her?
Yeah.
What is she doing? And then the next thing, it sounds like, is to figure out that value of time. Because we can't create time. Is it worth my time to do X, or do I need to rest so I can do God's calling? What do I need to focus on so I can do what I'm being called to do? And then, if I hear what you're saying, is once you figure that out, then you're solving not only your problem, but you're beginning to solve others' problems. Am I on target with that?
Yeah, I would actually reframe a little bit of that second part. The first is exactly right. Like, first, get clear on where God's leading you. That has to be. And if you're not there, then yes, you do need to relocate. Like, you need to adjust. Adjusting might, like for me, it took 2 years to find a new career. So it's not that like you find out you're on the wrong bus, you pray tomorrow you're on a new bus, things are good again.
Right.
But I think understanding that's the first step. The second one, I found we struggle. Because I'm including myself in this. We struggle when we try to assign a dollar value to our own time and life and worth, and trying to think about earning income through that lens. Instead, I would say once that woman finds out that, okay, I'm either on the right bus or I need to get on a different one. I use bus as the analogy. Good to great. He wrote a book. Jim Collins, Good to Great. The whole
Hmm.
thing's about being on the right or wrong bus. Anyway, it's how good companies become great by having all the right people on the right seats on the bus. Anyway,
Right.
if you haven't read it, that's the Cliff Notes. Um, if this woman realizes, okay, I'm walking his plan for me, then you have to think, how did God uniquely gift me to help other people? So, how are you uniquely gifted to serve others? And then you would exploit those gifts in the service of others. I would not think about like, how much money do I need to earn? What's my time worth? Not that you said that exactly. I'm just kind of continuing down that path. Think about like, how are my gifts uniquely called to serve other folks? And then lean heavily into that, exploit that, because that's how God's made you and wired you. And then you think about the problems you can solve for other people in their lives based off of how He's gifted you uniquely. That's where the money lies.
Mm. And some of it, I mean, as you said, you're the sole provider for your household. Your wife is the person who manages the household.
Yeah.
Technically, your income is split, right? You
Oh,
are
for sure.
providing for a lifestyle that you've chosen, you guys have chosen together. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I didn't mean to say you need to be able to put a dollar value on everything. It's
Sure.
what you were talking about with the arbitrage of if I can go and do something that creates this service, like you said, for $100, and a kiddo comes and says, "Can I mow your lawn for 20?" I've saved myself some money right there. I don't need to be out mowing the lawn. We're getting into entrepreneurial concepts. Tell
Yeah.
us where we can find you. Who is the ideal person to work with you? If folks are excited about learning more, where can they learn more about you?
Well, I appreciate that. My website is reconstructingwealth.com. So if you want to learn about the company, it's there. I would say the easiest place to find me personally is on Instagram. It's just my name at Matt Morizio. And you'll see a lot about my life. You'll see a lot about personal finances. You'll start to get to know not just who I am, but maybe how I think about things, how I think about finances and money and life and all the things. And if you want to send me a DM, if you follow me, send me a DM. I am in the midst of transitioning a video course from one website to another. So it's actually, I have to finish it so I can get the new link. But it's a 3-part free video course on a lot of what we talked about around money, like the mindset around money, some actual blocking and tackling about personal finances. A lot of the concepts we sort of brushed on today are a lot deeper in this 3-part series. And I will send you the new link once I have it uploaded. I'll send it to you for free. It might cost an email address, but that's about it. Like, I really am passionate about people changing their inside out relationship with money because I know their life will change. I'm case study number one on that. So if somebody wants to send me a DM after you follow me on Instagram, I will get you that link as soon as I upload it.
Fantastic. Well, Matt, it has been my pleasure. And I really appreciate how you are looking at this and that you didn't just join the ranks of the Me Too, let's make as much money as possible and not do what God's called us to do. And I know this is going to be a blessing to so many people who are listening to this. Give us your .com again and your Instagram handle for those that are walking and listening or, taking care of kids and listening, those types of things, how we can find you.
Cool. Yes, it's www.reconstructingwealth.com. And my Instagram is just my name, at Matt Morizio, MattMorizio. That's it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Tanya. Such an honor.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.